Sippers, sippets, welcome back to another episode of Pour Your Own Problems. I am your host, Mercy. In today's show, we're going to discuss the White House shooting that happened yesterday and what it revealed. Also, we're going to discuss a judge apologizing to a shooter. Let's review.
Hey, boss, he ain't working.
Richard McCauley with me, Chief of United States Secret Service Police. Approximately 3:30 this afternoon, our plainclothes officers and agents that consistently patrol the outer perimeter of the White House complex identified a suspicious individual that appeared to have a firearm. They called in support from our marked uniformed Secret Service police to make contact with that individual. Upon making contact, that individual fled briefly on foot, withdrew a firearm, and fired in the direction of our agents and officers. They returned fire and engaged. That individual was hit. He's since been transported to the hospital. I have no comments on his condition. I can tell you that at least one, I believe only one bystander was hit by the suspect. That individual is a juvenile. Did not sustain any life-threatening injuries, but he's also receiving treatment.
And see, this is what I've been discussing. People getting hit or being put in situations that they're not even volunteering to be in, right? So when we see these mass shootings or when we see these threats, especially against our president, especially against personnel, special agents, Secret Service, our vice president, Trump administration's cabinet, when it gets to this point where innocent people are getting injured because people just want to be evil and do what they want to do. Now a innocent young person has been injured due to someone's obsession to do harm because of what they don't like about the president, what they don't like the policies that this administration has implemented. We didn't see, it's tons of things that Biden didn't do that a lot of people don't like. But his life was never in danger, right? We wouldn't dare see this happen in other countries to their presidents or whoever, no matter if they're liked or disliked. And that is an issue that we constantly continue to see. So when we're talking about the rhetoric that's been spewed since Trump has gotten into office, that has boiled over and led to these violent situations. And then you'll get Democrats, you'll get people, socialists that get on video and like, I don't condone violence. We shouldn't be doing violence, but then won't tone down their rhetoric and their behaviors when they get on camera. Y'all putting a battery in these people's backs. Disgusting, man. Let's keep it going.
I'll point out that not long before this shooting occurred, the vice president's motorcade did transit through this area. The investigation itself, in terms of the use of force in the shooting, will be conducted by Metropolitan Police Department. I'll pause there.
Do we know how your guys identified this person as being suspicious? Was he on a radar or just how he appeared?
No, my understanding is they observed a print, we would call it, visual print of a firearm. These are trained surveillance detection personnel out there looking every day to look for just that. Not far from the White House complex, and they observed a visual print of a firearm.
Did he attack the motorcade in any way? Did he approach it with any menace?
No, not to my knowledge.
Was there any other reason to believe he was suspicious, not just having firearms?
That's enough for me.
And do we know if the child who was struck was definitely struck by the shooter by accident, perhaps by the officer?
I can't say, and we'll let the doctors figure that out, but everything I've seen leads me to believe, and the investigation, that he was struck by the suspect.
Wow. Now, what if that child would have lost their life, right? What if that child would have lost their life? It's amazing. It's amazing that people will, the lengths in which people will do.
News outside of the White House there in D.C. That's a live look at the scene right now. But for one moment here, I'm going to put up this X post on your screen there. That is coming from the U.S. Secret Service Office of Communications. U.S. Secret Service personnel are on scene of an officer-involved shooting at 15th Street and Independence Avenue in Washington, D.C. One individual was shot by law enforcement. Their condition is currently not known, so please avoid the area as emergency crews are responding. Once again, this breaking news coming in just as Trump was there inside the White House speaking at that small business summit. Taking a look right now at the scene there. This is a live shot coming from Fox 5 DC there. The Associated Press did put out an article saying an individual was shot by law enforcement Monday near the Washington Monument. According to the Secret Service, the person's condition and the circumstances surrounding the shooting around 15th Street and Independence Avenue were not immediately known. Once again, on your screen right now is a live look there.
And I would like to say, like, the bottom line is we would not see this in no other country, let alone their capitals, right? People have gone so far to where it's just disrespectful. Even after the Trump administration has cleaned up DC, because people that come from different countries shouldn't see our best be diminished, right? Especially at our country's capital, right? But then the violence, and it continues. You can say what you want to say. You can say, oh, I don't like Trump. I don't like what stands for. I don't like this. I don't like that. But wrong is wrong and right is right. And you're telling me people have convinced themselves that taking justice into their own hands, trying to assassinate people, trying to do harm to others is a notable justification. I think it's disgraceful. I think it's unpatriotic. And I think that these people should be dealt with to the fullest extent of the law. But Sipper, y'all tell me how y'all feel in the comments. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It's your boy Mercy. Let's keep it going.
A federal judge apologized to the man accused of attempting to assassinate President Trump at this year's White House Correspondents' Dinner. The federal judge overseeing Cole Allen's case in Washington, D.C., apologizing to him Monday for the treatment Allen's received while behind bars.
You know, I don't think a judge should really be apologizing for how a jail is keeping somebody who's charged with really any criminal case. That's up to the jail and how they maintain safety and security and his mental health.
Allen faces charges for shooting a Secret Service agent in his attempt to assassinate President Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Monday's emergency hearing was held due to the federal judge's grave concerns about Allen's conditions in custody, including what he described as seemingly unprompted solitary confinement after the Department of Corrections placed Allen on suicide watch, a move the defense argued was unnecessary and too severe. The government...
I say it like this. You shouldn't get no privileges. You shouldn't be... It doesn't matter at this point. I don't care, because it doesn't matter if it was President Trump or not. You don't get no privileges. Your privileges are revoked at this point, right? Because it was other people there that wasn't even the president. It was civilians there as well. It was Republicans there. It was Democrats there. It was independents there. To me personally, it doesn't even matter. You were contemplating of taking human life because of what you don't like, because of how you feel, in your feelings. Senseless. And then now a judge cater to this person? No, you need to be going by the laws that's on the books. That is the problem with our society now. These rogue judges, these judges that continuous pacify these criminals, but not even taking into account victims, the general public. Like, this is a slap in the face to the Secret Service agent that was shot upon. Now, he didn't lose his life or anything like that, but he put his life on the line. Man, this is crazy.
Said Allen had been placed on suicide watch because he made comments about not expecting to survive this trip to Washington.
A suicide watch seems a very appropriate thing to do. They're the ones where the buck stops with. If something bad happens within the jail, they're going to be held responsible.
Allen was removed from solitary confinement before the hearing.
You got to read between the lines. It doesn't take a rocket science to know that he was planning on taking out the leader of the free world and anybody who got in his way. So, yes, he would be on suicide watch because he already was willing to die already. But now that he's been caught after his botched attempt, you're going to give him freedoms? Man, I swear people are so crazy. They're willing to give criminals more due process than civilian people that ain't even breaking the law. And I feel that is the craziest justification ever.
Let's turn to the suspect in the White House Correspondents Association dinner shooting. He had been placed in severe lockdown, was on temporary suicide watch, requiring a padded cell, no access to phone calls, books, etc. A federal magistrate judge today said that was not based on any known medical assessment. And he actually apologized to the suspect, saying it was partly the court's role to ensure inmates are subjected to fair conditions. Well, I was surprised. What did you make of it all?
Yeah, I did a triple take when I saw that story, Jake. This is a ridiculous statement by this judge. First of all, to compare this would-be assassin of the president to the January 6th defendants is ludicrous. The January 6th defendants should have been prosecuted. That was rightful. However, most of them were prosecuted for misdemeanors, for nonviolent crimes. Even the most serious January 6th defendants were not charged with using a firearm in the course of violence like this individual. Were certainly not charged with attempted murder or attempted assassination. So that's a ridiculous comparison. Second of all, it's perfectly fine for judges to make sure that inmates are being held under humane, reasonable conditions. But to apologize, as this judge did on the record, to a person who just tried to essentially decapitate the leader of our entire government, of our executive branch, that's ridiculous. This person is entitled to due process. He's entitled to a fair trial, but not an apology.
I find this very, very appalling. Because, yes, due process is due for him, right? He should be made, he should be treated humanely, correct? But that don't mean you get privileges. You don't get the same privileges you had before you did the shooting. Before you attempted. You don't get the same privileges. So I'm lost and confused by this behavior. But this is the same behavior like the governor of Louisiana stated last week. Let's review what he said.
Safety of our citizens above all else. If a judge chooses to hand down weak sentences to known violent actors, if a judge decides to turn violent offenders loose with minimal restrictions, if a judge fails to treat gang-driven violence without the gravity it deserves, I am going to call them out individually, publicly, clearly, and directly. And I mean even the federal judges as well. Because when a judge fails to impose the appropriate consequences, that failure should not fall on the state. It should fall on the judge's shoulders. And when they fail to do their job, they put innocent people in danger. I'm asking the legislature for a full, while the session is going on, for full and holistic review of our sentencing laws. I will support, again, reforms that ensure judges have both the authority and understand the obligation to keep dangerous individuals off of our street. We are no longer going to accept complicity on our bench. Everyone, including judges, will be accountable for public safety.
And I think Governor Landry said it spot on. We got to hold these judges accountable for their behaviors as well. Bottom line, that was distasteful by that judge that apologized to Cole Allen. Like, it has no room, in my opinion, in our judicial system. We gotta start holding these. We hold everybody else accountable. We hold the police accountable. We hold our governors, our mayors, our sheriffs. We hold all these people accountable. But our judges in the judicial system seem to not get it. So I think this should happen across the board. They need to be held accountable. Because they treat criminals they give criminals a slap on the wrist while handcuffing our law. And that's just my take on it. But I digress. So sippers, sippets, y'all tell me how y'all feel about it in the comments. You remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It's your boy Mercy. I'm out.